Hey, welcome back to another session of the Growth and Scaling Sessions. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and today we've got a special guest. We're going to be talking a lot about values and value-driven leadership and how your values can help not only drive and grow your business, but how values play a role in attracting the right people onto your team, the right clients as your customers, and the right partners as your vendor partners. It is a huge integration here that can be based off of something as simple as values. I, for one, have worked as an entrepreneur my entire life, and I've aligned myself with different people in different industries, sometimes that aligned with my values and sometimes they did not. And I can tell you right now that as a business owner and as someone who's operated my own businesses, whenever I've been aligned with someone who was not aligned with my values, it ended off very poorly. Either somebody got ripped off or somebody got in trouble or something was just not meshing well. But on the flip side, I've had many experiences where my core values aligned with the values of the other partners in the organizations that I worked with, and it turned out to be an amazing experience. Today's guest is an awesome example of aligning his values with other people's to grow and build his organization, and both as an entrepreneur and in his past life of working for some large companies. And so I want to introduce to you our guest today, who is coming to us, Noel Paul. And Noel, give us a brief intro as to who you are and what do you do for your business?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Glad to be here and so excited to share this discussion with you on this important topic. So just a quick executive summary of my background. First of all, I was born in Pakistan and moved to the United States when I was 6 years old. So just celebrated a milestone anniversary of being in this great country. And the
Awesome.
opportunity that people talk about in America has definitely lived out in my personal experience. So I was educated in public schools and then went to Purdue University for an engineering degree. Joined a pharmaceutical company called Eli Lilly, was there for 28 years and had a variety of different experiences, including being sponsored to get my MBA, also from Purdue.
Love
And
it.
so I've had functional experiences, industry experiences, as well as entrepreneurial and nonprofit experiences. On the industry side, I've had a chance to work in human health with Lilly, in animal health with Elanco Animal Health. I've had a chance to work in the retail sector. My wife and I own a paint your own pottery franchise. And then I've had a chance to work across functions. So engineering, human resources, corporate social responsibility. And then on the entrepreneurial side, as I mentioned, my wife and I have the franchise, but I also was an executive mentor at the Purdue Foundry, which is the incubator for
Cool.
business ideas. I have my own startup with Tiger Careers and was also chief commercialization officer for a health tech startup as well. And then on the nonprofit side, I have had a chance to work with the United Way, Heifer International, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for some cool stuff that hopefully we can talk about a little bit further.
I
Thanks for the
love it.
opportunity to join.
I love it. Hey, so grateful that you're here, and I love all that you mentioned. I love that. I feel like a lot of it does align with me and the way that I like to operate my businesses. First of all, you said a pottery company. Will you just give a little shout out to your wife, because I think it's awesome what she does. My kids have actually been patrons of your business in one of their locations. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. The website is colormemine.com. It's a paint your own pottery franchise. There are about 150 or so located globally, but the most of them are in the US. So my wife
Love it.
Shai opened her first studio in Fairfax, Virginia in 2004, so almost 20 years ago. And she's a smart business entrepreneurial woman. And so then now we're based in Indianapolis at her second location. And yeah, it's a great place to come and do pottery, whether you're adults, as a team building, a
I
ladies'
love
night
it.
out, birthday parties, fun time with your kids. We actually did a daddy-daughter date night on Valentine's and had
Love it.
full studio of dads with their daughters. Even my wife's 83-year-old father came to paint with her at
Love
that
it.
event. So super fun. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to give a shout out to Color Me Mine.
I love it. I love it. No, it's a fascinating business model. I think it's great. My kids have gone there several times with different parties and stuff like that. So thank you for doing that. Hey, so tell us, Noel. Like I, one of the first things that I do when I work with a new company, one of the very first things I do is I try and really understand what this company stands for, because it is so hard to grow and scale without a clear vision of what they stand for. And I I'm guessing that you've had experience with companies that do and don't have very strong values. Can you share with us an example of a time where you worked with a group that was very poorly aligned, or maybe didn't have anything defined in terms of what they stood for as a company?
Yeah, so I'll give a couple examples that come to mind, and one is more of a generic answer that says, if companies aren't really clear on what they stand for, it's really, and they're really kind of chasing the dollar, or they're really kind of saying, hey, I have a product and I'm just trying to commercialize it or make money from it, and profit is their kind of core, but they really haven't identified what are they really trying to do, who are they really trying to help, what is
Right,
their real purpose, then I find that it's going to be a tough road to attract people in
right,
terms of talent. It's going to be tough to attract partners and stakeholders, um,
100%.
because as Simon Sinek, who did a lot of work in the why space, the personal why, the organizational why, says,
Right.
people don't buy what you sell; they buy why you sell it, or they
Yeah,
buy why what you stand for, and so, especially in today's world, and some of my backgrounds in HR and recruiting. And so, talent today is really looking for a more purpose driven organization and trying to understand, how they can have impact in the work that they do. And if your mission is dollars, you may not get the best talent, kind of
agreed.
come to your firm. You may not get the best partners as well, or you might get partners, but you might find that if they're chasing the dollar and you're chasing the dollar, you're going to be competing. Whereas if you both have a common
Right,
vision or driven kind of approach, then you're both going to say, hey, let's go do good work together. And then you
right.
can find those partnerships work most effectively. I don't know if that helps.
No, it totally helps. I witnessed over the past couple of years. There's a business local to me here in Utah that has seen some significant growth over the last couple decades, and they just had a huge exit last year, huge for Utah anyway. And I was so excited for them. And one of the things I noticed that they did in their efforts to grow and scale is about 4 or 5 years ago they received a massive amount of funding from a group and backing, and they immediately went to their C-level to grow and develop a stronger C-level in their organization. I mean, they went from having maybe 3 or 4 people on their C-level up to about 10,
Ooh.
and it was just a huge expansion of leadership. And it was interesting. I was talking to one of the C-level people a few years later, and he said, "Yeah, Todd, it was really, we brought in all these rock stars because we had all this money to bring in these rock stars. We brought in all these rock stars, and what we discovered was that they didn't totally align with our values. And so, as awesome as they were in their previous roles in a previous company, it just didn't work out for them to be part of our organization." And so, have you seen anything like that before? What do you think is the difference there between one person thriving somewhere else and totally not thriving in another organization?
Yeah, so I think could be a couple dynamics, right? One is, one, you just have a misalignment of the how, right? Because a lot
Right,
of people talk about the what. These might
right,
have been 10 very successful business leaders. They're very accomplished and they've achieved so many great things. So the founder might say, "Oh, okay, I really want to. I get to bring this talent in, this talent, this talent in." But it's the what might be fine, but the how might be different or a
right,
miss. And if people don't spend time on the how people operate, and so one thing I've seen a lot is people may say they have values and they probably do, but they're
right,
not great at articulating them or even
right.
literally writing them down. Okay.
Yeah,
And if you write them down, and let's say that the 10 people we're talking about here wrote down what do they really stand for, or what
yeah,
environment do they really thrive in, or have they led success in, and to look for where those are overlapping,
yep,
then you can start to anchor on the common themes of those and then they're operating with those written down values. And if you don't
100%.
write them down, then it's hard to talk about them. It's hard to be able to unpack them, because one of the things I say is values define how you operate and what you don't tolerate.
I love it.
How you operate and what you don't tolerate. And if
Make
you
notes of that, everybody.
yeah, if you can get alignment on defining that, then it's going to serve you well, both internal to the organization as well as external to the organization. And I'm happy to share kind of my personal example in a corporate experience, if that's helpful.
Yeah, please do.
So as I mentioned, I grew up at Eli Lilly and Company for 28 years, and
I love you to say I grew up.
I did. I literally, from age 22 on, they taught me a lot, and I gave a lot of credit to that culture of respect, excellence, and integrity. Right? Those were the three core values of Lilly, and it was even articulated in certain orders: is excellence, integrity, and respect for people. Right? And I've personally grown up in that environment. I've adopted those values. They were articulated, but it also then got everyone clear. When we were recruiting talent, we would say, these are the core values of the company. If you have similar core values, think about coming on and joining us, right? And if those values don't align, then that's okay. Then please go be happy somewhere else where your values align to that organization. But it also gave us some guardrails, because I remember we had a sales rep who was operating outside of the boundaries or the guardrails of integrity. And we had to separate that person, because it was clear to say, hey, when you're submitting expense reports, if they're not submitted, consistently and in compliance, that's not something we tolerate. And it was unfortunate, but it really stood for it really spoke to what the company stood for. So it was clearly articulated, and people knew that they were going to be evaluated against that to maintain that cultural integrity.
I love it. One of the things I did with Moku, which is my current agency that I run, we when we first started it, it was kind of a birth. It was kind of a pivot in COVID. I had another consulting operation that was completely dismantled because of COVID and had to restart. And one of the very first things we did was we outlined what our core values were. And we actually took our name, Moku, which is a Japanese word for vision or eye, to see things. And we decided to make that our core value statement. And so one of the things that we've done, I just threw in the notes there, Moku has now become our core value statement. M is to be moral. We found that a lot of marketing agencies were not moral. They would just continue to take money from clients, whether or not their campaigns were working, and I find that immoral. So our focus is to be moral. First off, O is to be optimistic. We are very, very optimized towards optimism. We feel like there's always a good way. There's always a good out for almost any situation. K is to be keen to our clients' needs, and U is to unify. We found that these core values have connected us with potential clients, current clients, and are uniting us with different team players. We've grown as large as 45 employees at certain times of our existence. Thank you. And we currently are a little bit more. We downsized a little bit to focus on a new program, a new launch that we're doing. But we have an amazing core group who completely aligns on our core values, and we talk about them. We literally bring them up at least once a month during our monthly staff meetings, our all hands meetings, and it has united us. And I didn't come up with them all. It was something we did together as a team to build what values do we want to base our business off of, so that we all feel good about what we're doing every day.
Absolutely. And I think we've been talking a little bit about how defining the values can help you from an internal standpoint, but yours is a great example of how you can use those to define and have value or have impact from an external standpoint, right? Because now if either your clients, current clients, or your potential clients, more importantly, know that Moku represents who how you operate, what you stand for, what your key principles are, they're going to gravitate towards you because they might say, oh, I really respect the fact that an agency has morality as one of
Right.
their core values. Not many firms do. Or that, you're really focused on optimism or unify,
Right.
or keen to the client's needs. So just even defining that, I can tell you that the one example that I had, if that's okay to share, is that
Totally.
the whole concept of partnerships. When I was leading corporate social responsibility at Elanco Animal Health, credit goes to the leadership there of really having a defined culture that was focused on being a purpose-driven culture. So Elanco was it is an animal health company that made products for healthy cows, chickens, pigs, dogs, cats, pets, and stuff like that. But
Right.
on the food side, we weren't talking about healthy cows. We were talking about being a purpose-driven organization to be able to address world hunger in a sustainable way, right? And
Love it.
standing for that cause led us to identify partners who also wanted to collaborate with us on a lot of our foundation donations, on a lot of our investments in sustainable food security globally. I was on the
Right.
board of the Indianapolis Hunger Network with the food banks. We were funding Heifer International through our foundation dollars to be able to
That's cool.
support sustainable dairy farming across the world so that people could come out of poverty. And that led us to identifying other common partners that also were focused on addressing global hunger in a sustainable way. And one of those became the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so we were able to secure a grant for $3 million to be
So
able to
cool.
commercialize our dairy and poultry products for smallholder farmers in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania.
I love
And
it.
what it did was it started a whole new line of business for Elanco, but it was really focused on how do we help smallholder farmers in these East African countries sustainably come out of poverty through dairy farming and through poultry farming so their kids could go to school, so they could have more than one meal a day. It was a very powerful way that values being defined brought
I
in
love it.
other partners to go out and do great things.
Well, and I think that what you just described is the perfect approach for any kind of nonprofit or any kind of feel good organization in the world. Is how do you align with what our mission is? How do you align with what our values are? And there's a lot to be said for companies who really build their entire organization off of that foundation. One of the things that we've done is in our consulting, we focus entirely on revenue operations. Like revenue operations are sales, marketing, and product development, right? At its core. And so our entire mission is to take a company and help them identify the best products that they offer, the most profitable way to deliver them. All these. We try revenue operations as a more stabilized revenue play. What we start with, though, is this guidance system. We feel like a business cannot grow and scale without a fully declared value system or mission that identifies what they're trying to do, who they're trying to service, and how they're going to service these people. And core values, I think, is at the root of all of that. And I just find that there are a lot of companies out there making a lot of money who are shady, who are not value driven, who don't care at all about their clients. They just want to get their monthly recurring revenue up at whatever cost possible.
Yeah, yeah. And
How
from
do
a
you,
business, go
yeah,
ahead.
how do you find yourself, as a business owner or even as an employee of a larger organization? How do you align with that? How do you wrap your head around that little conundrum there?
Well, I think we can control ourselves and we can't control others. And
Yeah.
so what we can the phrase I used with my team earlier in a leadership role that I had was operate in your circle of control. You can't operate in your circle of concern. It's just going to
Yeah.
be a whirlwind. And yes, there are other companies, other leaders, other employees, or other businesses that are going to
Right.
be operating for quote unquote selfish reasons. Profit is the end, beginning, and everything in between.
Right.
And we can't really kind of control that. What we can control is what organization do I have? What is my startup? What is my company? Who am I leading? and really
Right.
focus on what I can control. And what I'll say is that, there's a really popular phrase from a guy named Peter Drucker from years ago.
Right.
And he
Right.
says, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
Okay. And so we can have a great strategy to grow a business, but if we don't have the right culture, which has values deeply embedded in that
Right.
word, right?
Right.
If we don't have the right culture, then we can have the perfect strategy, but it will never work. And so having
Right.
that culture defined is going to be crucial to our business, or to the team that we're leading, or to the business that we're running, or that we're trying to grow. And that's what I would tell the founders and CEOs of firms that are trying to grow and scale is, you might have a great strategy, you might have a great product and a great service, but if you haven't really focused on defining the culture in which you're going to bring that to market or scale
Yep.
that in the market, the sustainability risk is higher than if you didn't have the culture defined.
Totally agree. I would love to just kind of throw this out there to whoever's listening. I would love to know, throw in the comments below, do you feel like you are aligned with whatever organization that you work for right now? If you are, I would love to hear a thumbs up, and I'd love to have you tag the company that you work for. If you're not, don't tag, and I don't want any negative anything about any companies, but I'd love to know why. How can you stay happy at a company that is not aligned with your values? I think we're seeing this massive outbreak in the world right now of value-driven marketing, and some companies are having a hard time determining what are their values. We see the mass confusion at Bud Light this week, and we see this. They're turning on their core client group, and Nike doing the same thing. There's lots of companies that are really confused. So where to draw the line of what do we stand for, and what do we not stand for? What do we believe in versus what does everybody else want us to believe in? And I think that companies are getting themselves in trouble by not clearly understanding what they do stand for. And what are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think authenticity is a really, really important element here, right? Because if firms are trying to capture market share because they feel like this becomes a strategic business lever, right?
Right,
Hey, the noise in the market, or the voice in the market, or the trend in the market
right,
is X topic, Y topic, Z topic. Let's go out and try to monetize or maximize our ability to
right,
monetize that trend, right?
right,
So yeah, that's a pure business play, right?
right,
But what happens though is, if it's not coming with authenticity, right?
right,
Customers are going to see right through that lack of authenticity. Talent will see right through that lack of authenticity. And
right.
even with the best intentions, now with social media, people will not only see that lack of authenticity, but they will call people out, and they will call organizations and leaders out on that lack of authenticity.
I love it.
And and so that's the downside risk if
Yeah,
you're not really staying true to who you are, and being
right,
able to articulate, this is what I stand for, this is why I stand for it, uh,
right.
and, and being able to say that very candidly, but also very honestly, because people will see through that fake stuff all
I
day
love it.
long. That's the risk of being able to capture these trends from a marketing angle standpoint.
Trends will get a company into more trouble than anything they could ever imagine if the trend does not align with who they stand for and what they're all about. I think there's places where a trend can be a huge boon to a company if it aligns with their values. But if the trend is completely the opposite of what their core group of buyers or their core group of values are, they're going to turn everybody off, which
Yeah.
is not what they anticipate.
Yeah, and storytelling is a very powerful, effective way to really kind
Yes.
of bring those values to light. So my personal story would be, why do I operate on a value of gratitude or respect for people? Well, one
Right.
is, I told you earlier, Lily. I grew up in Lily. Lily taught me this concept of respect for people.
Love it.
And I was born in Pakistan. I hung out with Christians. I hung out with
Right.
Muslims. I hung out with people from the African American community. We sang, hymns in Christian in our Punjabi Pakistani language at
Wow.
Episcopal Black churches. Well, so that
Wow.
those are the
Yeah.
things that shape me to
Yeah.
really say respect for people is a core value. When I tell people that story, then hopefully they can understand that, oh, okay, we get, Noel, why you have a deep
Right.
value and respect for people. And so I also don't really have a high tolerance for people who don't have respect for people. It's like, okay, well then you go over there, you move to my circle of concern,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I'm not gonna interact with partners or hire talent or work with firms. I might be walking away from real dollars, but
Totally.
if you don't have those core values of respect for people, it's going to be tough for me to enjoy that work.
And you know what? That's okay to do. For those watching, it is okay to walk away from an opportunity that does not align with your values. I can promise you, having done this firsthand, I worked with a group. I had a huge customer service company. We had a call center offshore. And we went in and did work with a group that was selling health and nutri products in a way, nothing wrong with health and nutri industry, but one of my clients was selling it in a way that I thought was shady. I was like, the money's too good. I'll just stick with them because I've been working with them for a few years anyway. And I continue to watch the decision making get worse and worse and worse. And finally, I did cut the connection between myself and that brand. And 5 years later, I just saw an ad in the paper that they are all going to jail.
Mm.
All the 10 leaders of this group are all they've all been convicted of some serious crimes. And I was so grateful that I made a value decision. It wasn't a money decision because it was a stupid money decision to walk away from a great business client. But even though we were all friends on a social level, the values that they were instilling in the way they sold their products was what turned me off and turned me from them in terms of working with them as a partner vendor. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody out there. I really truly do. We could go on and on, I think, about talking about core values. And I think that, Noel, you've got an amazing organization. You have an amazing opportunity within your Tiger careers in helping match people with companies that align with them. How do you do that from a recruiting standpoint? And what is the main focus that you go into a project trying to build out a team for a company?
Yeah, so I think so there's a couple different ways that I coach. One is I'll do individual career coaching, individual executive coaching, and then because of my international experience, I can bring a lot to the table in terms of how do you work and lead across cultures, right?
Love it.
So organizations that may have a diverse workforce, right? They may have a diverse leadership team. They might be trying to expand into different markets. So I helped a specialty chemicals company in France do a U.S. market entry strategy into the U.S. to figure out, which segments, where should they put their first sales reps and stuff like that.
Right.
We're helping companies that are, European based that are establishing a large facility here in Indiana. And, they're going through some dynamics of culture within their
Yeah,
leadership. And so just helping them understand that one, cultures are different. And so employees will be different because of their culture.
for sure.
And also that it's not right or wrong, it's just different. If we grew up in culture A, we would probably operate like employee A. If we
Right.
grew up in culture B, we would probably operate like the employee B. And
Agreed.
just helping them build those bridges. So I do a lot of work in the consulting space around cross-cultural dynamics,
Cool.
coaching expats that are coming to the US for an international assignment,
Yeah.
or companies that are trying to do global stuff. And even the other element is at the individual executive or individual career coaching standpoint is really helping them understand their own normal kind of biases, right? Because the culture they grew up in is going to cause them to lead in a certain way, but
Right.
how do they then flex their style to lead effectively? Because now, if you look at the workforce, even within the U.S., a company in Indiana may have Hispanic talent, African American talent,
Right.
Burmese talent, Indian talent, Chinese talent, all on the same team. How does a
Right.
leader lead knowing that all those cultures are coming into the workforce? And again, coming back to, has the firm defined those core values so that everyone can operate along the same cultural line, but
Love
also
it.
effectively work across and work together?
Love it. Noel, this has been an awesome conversation. I absolutely love it. I love this topic. I think it should be at the core of every business discussion. They should be discussing this all the time. Like I really don't think that there's a business out there who shouldn't be talking about their culture and their values, because it really does define who you are, where you're going, who you align with, what companies make sense to work with, what vendor partners are going to work for you, what clients do you want to serve. All of those things have everything to do with your core values. And sometimes yes, you will offend people. That's okay. You're going to attract the people that you need to attract and that you want to attract. And you might offend other people and they may think you're the worst company in the world. But the ones that you really want to work with are going to recognize what you stand for, and they're going to love working with you, and it's going to make your business a lot happier in the long run. Any thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. I think we should not be shy for what we stand for, because the universe we will attract those common themes or those common beliefs. I
Love
think
it.
the other anchor would be, if someone doesn't agree with you, you can respectfully walk away and you can still respect them to have their
Totally.
decisions. I think right now, I'll speak specifically for the US, there's this dynamic of I'm right and you're wrong. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be that way. You can just say internally, this is what my company stands for. This is what
Yep.
I stand for as a leader, as a founder, as a CEO. And I'm not telling you that you need to stand for that, because you're entitled to stand for what you stand for, and
Right.
we can be different. And so we
Right.
don't have to work together, but we can respectfully walk away, because you get to choose your values in your firm, just like I get to choose my values in my firm.
I love
You
it.
can't tell me what to choose, so therefore I shouldn't be
I'm
able
not
to
going to tell
impose mine
you.
on you, right?
Right. Right.
I think
Right.
that core value of respect. But I
I
think
love it.
if we can define ours, then we can operate very holistically on ours.
I love it. Well, I sure appreciate you being here with us today. And for those that are curious about why we're doing these growth and scaling sessions, just to close up, we are doing this because there are so many companies out there who have only focused their business on the launch. They've raised money for a launch. They've put energy into a launch. They've done everything they can to make this business get launched off the ground. That's amazing, and it is so hard to get through the launch. But the next stage of growth can only happen with strong foundation. Core values is one of our stage one. We call it the guidance system. Companies cannot grow and scale without these types of things in play. This week's topic is completely geared around guidance system, which is super important to me and super important to businesses. Any business out there that you've seen that has had a significant amount of success comes from a clear guidance system. I can guarantee you that. Whether you agree with them or not, they are very unified as a team. They are very clear on what their mission is, and they operate and execute at a very high level because of that. Next week's topic is very different, and the week after is very different, but there are core foundational things. You can learn more about them at withmocha.com. And Noel, we put his company information up there several times during the presentation. This is important. Follow us on LinkedIn. We both are talking about this on a regular basis. And please, please take your business to the next level by focusing on what you stand for and how do you make that known in the marketplace. Noel, thanks so much for being with me today and talking about this topic.
It was a pleasure, Todd. Thanks so much for letting me join. It was a great conversation, and I hope that wish the best to those that are joining live, and also to those that see this in replay. Best of luck as you grow your businesses.
100%.